Alright, this is part 4 of the React D3 TypeScript tutorial, and in this video we'll be learning about groups and margins. We're going to start off where we left off last time, and before we begin, let's go ahead and explain a little bit of this code. So we have set the selection into state, and if we do have that selection, we're going to head and append some rectangles based on the data that we have all the way up here. Alright. And we're going to give it some attributes based on the scales that we have created here. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, just exactly where we left off last time. Okay, so let's talk about groups. Okay, SVG group elements are used to help group elements together and is defined by G. So say we have a couple of rectangles. And this is exactly how you would write a group element. So say if we have a couple of rectangles, we can wrap them in a container like a group, and we can apply transformations on the group itself, and it will apply that on all rectangles. And this is really helpful and important, especially to bar charts, because it helps you translate all the elements at once, specifically rectangles, without having to go through them individually. Right? This is important if we want to add things like axes or labeling to charts. We're going to have to provide some space and margins so that we can translate the bars together in one go. Okay, so let's go ahead and write some dimensions in an object. We'll give a width, height, basically what we have from before, but instead we're going to create a chart width with just a little slight less than the width itself, and a chart height. Again, just a little bit less. And we're going to give it a margin left of 100. Okay. Let's go ahead and replace some of these numbers. This is going to be dimensions, chart height. This is going to be dimensions, chart width. And let's get rid of this padding. And we're going to go ahead and replace this. And replace this as well. Okay. Let's see if I'm missing anything else. All right. So let's go ahead and say to indicate the SVG container, I'm going to append a rectangle that has the height and width of the SVG itself. So let's go ahead and say selection dot append rect dot attribute width, and that will be the height of the width of the SVG. Same thing with the height. And let's give it a fill color of blue. Now I'm going to wrap my rectangles in a group element so that we can apply transformations later. Okay. All right, so cool. We have that space, but you can tell that we need to shift the rectangles a little bit towards the right so that we can add the labeling and add the axes on the left-hand side and at the bottom-hand side. So how we do that is by, I don't know if you know your CSS, but it's kind of like CSS where you say transform, translate. It's kind of like that, right? So we're going to give it an attribute, transform, and we're going to write a template string so that we can put in our variables. So translate, and we're only worried about translating it towards the right, so we don't really care about translating it up or down, so we can give the second argument as 0, but as the first argument we're going to go ahead and give it the margin and margin left, which is 100. So it'll be shift towards the right by 100 units or 100 pixels. So cool, you can see that we do have space now, and let's go ahead and get rid of this blue rectangle. And I want to talk about something called axes. Okay, so D3 axes comes with axis generator functions that take scales as arguments. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a D3 axis. We're going to add D3 axis and the corresponding types for it. And you can go ahead and add that. I already have that added. All right. We're going to import two functions. From D3 axis, and they're going to be called axis left and axis bottom. Okay, and how we utilize these generator functions is just simply by calling them and passing in our scale. So let's go ahead and say constant y-axis equals, and we're going to place on the axis left, and we'll just go ahead and pass in our scale. Okay, it's pretty simple. Same thing with our x-axis. Okay, and how we render these axes is like so. We're going to create a group for each one of them. And so we're going to say constant x-axis group equals selection. We're going to wrap it in a group. And we're going to call it like so. Okay, and this is how you would render the axes. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the y-axis. Okay. All right, so we do have it rendered, and by default, it is rendered at the origin, which is 0, 0. So we're going to have to do some translating work to get it to look good. All right. So let's go ahead and apply our transformations, attribute, transform. And now this is the x attribute, or this is the x-axis. So what we want to do is, if you can see it right here, we're going to have to translate it a little bit towards the right by the margin left, and then bring it all the way down by the chart height. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Translate. Go ahead and write dimensions, margin left, dimensions, chart height. Okay, cool. It's looking nice now. Let's go ahead and do the same with the y-axis, but in this case for the y-axis, all we want to do is just shift it over to the left, or shift it over to the right by the margin left. We don't need to do anything for the, we don't need to translate it up or down or anything like that. So let's go ahead and attribute, transform, translate, and we just do it by the left. Zero. All right, cool. The 0 is a little bit cut off. I'm not going to take care of that, but you can. It's, if you want to, you just add a margin to the top, and that should be fine, and it will take care of that. Okay. So cool. Let's talk about these ticks, right? So say I'm not satisfied with these number of ticks. Say I think 10 of them are just too many, and I want 3 of them, right? And what we can do is actually say dot ticks, and let's say I just want 3 of them. Now D3 will try its best to give you 3 ticks, but it might not always give you 3 ticks. It might be 1 or 2 off, or actually a couple off, but it will try its best. Okay, so in this case we actually get 5. Okay, and say we actually want to format the actual tick text itself, right? So how we do that is .tick format. Now it accepts an argument, or accepts a function in which the argument is the tick text itself, and what you return from that function is what you're going to have. So let's say D is our tick text. We're going to give it a template string, and say it's in a unit of, say, dollars. So I'm just going to add a $sign. Okay, so now we have $signs in front of it. okay? Or if, say it's not dollars, let's say it's just some sort of units, we're gonna say units. And now we have units appended, okay? All right, cool. It's looking more and more like a bar chart, but as you can notice, the left axis is flipped. We want it to go from 0 to 8,000 instead of 8,000 to 0, right? And we need to shift these rectangles all the way down, okay? And we will take care of that in the next video and also introduce updating the chart and removing elements and adding elements and all that jazz. All right, cool. We'll see you there.